Hello. We're going to have day 2 of our Fueling Life lessons. So, if you are home and you already have a copy of the recipe for a food supply notes, go ahead and grab those. Again, we're learning how producers change carbon dioxide and water into glucose and oxygen. And our big idea is that we want to know how producers change energy and matter into things that keep us alive. Okay, so we talked about if we want to make cookies, we need certain ingredients. We need to combine them in a specific way and then bake them in an oven. And our raw ingredients, after we bake them, become cookies. So we use that kind of as a stepping off point to talk about how plants use energy from the sun to perform photosynthesis. And so if you'll remember, plants use raw ingredients, which we call reactants when we are talking about chemical reactions. And so the reactants or ingredients that a plant needs to do photosynthesis are water and carbon dioxide. And so when the plant mixes water and carbon dioxide together in the chloroplasts and exposes those items to sunlight, first the sunlight actually breaks down the water and the carbon dioxide into individual atoms and then rearranges those atoms. And it produces oxygen gas, which we breathe, and it produces glucose, which is a type of sugar. All right, so just a quick reminder, all of these green items have not only their color in common, but they are all producers. So they can all perform photosynthesis. All right, remember in a recipe, we gather all of our ingredients and we need the exact amounts in order for the recipe to come out right. So making cookies, we might have flour and sugar and eggs, and we mix them together in an oven and make cookies. The reactants, so that's the technical term for ingredients when we're talking about photosynthesis. The reactants, try to remember them on your own. That would be water that we get through the roots and carbon dioxide that we get through the leaves. Okay, then when the carbon dioxide and water are exposed to sunlight in the chloroplasts, they will produce new molecules for us. They will produce for us some oxygen and some glucose. Okay, so these are the products that come out after the photosynthesis has been completed. All right, so there's a word equation. It's an equation almost like math. Chemistry is math and science combined. And so we're going to say that we take carbon dioxide plus water. Oops, sorry that I have an image of a hand there. It's my cursor. Carbon dioxide plus water in the presence of light will produce, do you remember? It's glucose and oxygen. Okay, so just a reminder, this is light energy that we are using from the sun. This process is called photosynthesis. So remember, photo means light. That means we have to have sunlight in order to complete this process. Synthesis means make things, basically. So we're going to use light to make things. Okay, so we're going to use carbon dioxide and water, expose them to light in the leaf, in the chloroplast, and the chloroplast is going to help us produce glucose and oxygen. All right, so last class we actually used pop beads to make our own reactants. We made 6 water molecules, and we made 6 carbon dioxide molecules. And then we pretended that we were a plant and we were exposed to the energy from the sun. So we broke apart all of our molecules. We had a whole bunch of atoms just floating around loosely on our leaf. And then we used energy from the sun to create one big hunker glucose molecule and 6 different oxygen gas molecules. So oxygen likes to be paired up, so we took our leftover oxygen atoms and let them be paired up and happy, and this is what we ended up with, was 1 glucose molecule, 6 oxygen molecules. And these numbers are important, just like the amounts you need when you are using a recipe to make cookies. All right, so the reactants, again, those are the things going in for photosynthesis. The reactants are water and carbon dioxide. Water goes in through the roots, and carbon dioxide goes in through the leaves. How many atoms made up the reactants in this photo? Well, we have 6 molecules, but remember that atoms are all of the individual atoms that are parts of each molecule. So if you count all of our atoms up, you'd find that we had 36 different atoms, 36 different pop beads. Then we created the products of photosynthesis, and we had one big glucose molecule, and we had 6 different oxygen molecules. But if you break it up into exactly how many atoms you have, we still only have 36 atoms. Okay, we started with 36 atoms in one set of arrangements, right? And then we popped them apart, and then we negotiated them, refriended them. We still only had 36 atoms though. So did we add or gain any matter? No, we did not. Atoms are just rearranged to make new friends and create new molecules. All right, so just remember we needed to know those quantities. So in this recipe, we need exactly 1 cup of butter. And so you have to make sure that when you are looking at photosynthesis as a process, you know the exact quantities, okay? So we know it's going to be water in, carbon dioxide in, and glucose out and oxygen out. But remember your numbers. It's 6 water molecules, 6 carbon dioxide molecules. When they're exposed to light energy in the chloroplasts, they create 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules. Those numbers are important: 6, 6, 1, and 6. Okay, and so this is a word equation where we're using our words to talk about what happened. The actual chemical formula, we have 6CO2. Remember, that's carbon, and then di is for the number 2, oxide. So I have 2 oxygens for every carbon. 6H2O, so I have 6 water molecules exposed to energy, and that produces 6 carbon, H12, oxygen 6. This whole big honker molecule with all of those atoms is glucose. It's a type of sugar. And we also ended up with 6 oxygen molecules. Okay, so you want to know these numbers: 6 carbon dioxide, 6 water, 6 glucose, and 6 oxygen. All right, what in this equation have we not talked about yet? Well, it's the chlorophyll. So I've been using the word chloroplast a bunch because chloroplast is the location where all of this rearranging happens. So let's talk about chlorophyll right now. And so I'd like for you to watch this quick brain pop video. Let me try to adjust my settings. Nope, I didn't mean for you to watch me. Hold on.
Dear Tim and Moby, how do plants grow? From Nance1277. All living things need nourishment to grow, but plant food is different from people food. Plants make their own food in a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis couldn't happen without the sun. Plants collect energy from sunlight and use this energy to make a sugar called glucose. Glucose is the main source of nutrition for plants, fueling their cells for function and growth. I'll show you. It's no secret that plants use their roots to drink up water from the soil. Water travels from the roots to the plant's leaves through a transport tissue called xylem, that's wood in trees. Meanwhile, leaves absorb carbon dioxide from the air through openings called stomata. The water and carbon dioxide spread through the leaves into cells called the palisade and spongy cells. These cells contain structures called chloroplasts, which are filled with a green pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is what makes green plants green. In photosynthesis, chlorophyll traps energy from sunlight, storing it as chemical energy. This process splits water molecules into hydrogen and oxygen atoms. The chemical energy is used to create glucose from the hydrogen and carbon dioxide. The glucose dissolves into extra water molecules and gives the plant plenty of food for growth. The leaves release oxygen as a waste product. That's one reason that plants are so important to us. They absorb our carbon dioxide and leave us with oxygen. We inhale the oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide back into the air. Yeah, I guess you could call it a partnership, except we eat them. Moby, drinking sugar is not going to make you grow. It's just going to make you hyper. Oh boy.
Okay, so if you are in third period or seventh period, you didn't get a chance to do the exit ticket after our day one lesson. So after this quick wrap up, I'd like for you to do the exit ticket now. Go ahead and go into Schoology, and it's just called exit ticket number 1, I think, for Fueling Life. If you are in class periods 2, 5, or 8, you probably already did this exit ticket. So you can pause the video and you can move on, do the exit ticket. All right, so now we're going to think about our leaves again, and we're going to zoom in to this leaf. And of course, like all biotic things, leaves and plants are made up of cells. And so there's some vocabulary involved. We're going to talk about a cell. We will talk about this word organelle. We might mention cell membrane, cytoplasm, nucleus, mitochondria, vacuole, cell wall, chloroplast we will definitely talk about, and microscope. If we have time, we will look in microscopes today. Okay, so think back to our cookie analogy. If we're baking cookies, we bake cookies in the kitchen, right? And so you know that there's a special room with special equipment to make that baking happen. So cells also have a special place where they do special jobs. And each one of their special rooms, or that's an analogy, of course, they're called organelles. So notice how that word is almost like the word organ. So you can think about our heart and our liver and different organs that we have. Organelles, we're going to talk about as places in a plant cell where there are special jobs. All right, so you can look in your textbook on pages 48 and 49, or actually the next couple of slides that I have here will also have this information. So if you don't have a textbook in front of you, you can use the slides. I'd like for you to read and look at the pictures, learn more about the importance of chloroplasts and chlorophyll, and make sure that you are seeing the difference between chloroplasts and chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a pigment that actually traps energy from the sun, traps that sunlight energy, and then it is the chloroplast that actually performs the photosynthesis process. All right, if you look at your Fueling Life or recipe for a food supply notes page, you'll see Fueling Life on the last piece of paper, I believe. You have some statements to fill in. You're going to describe why chloroplasts are important and why chlorophyll is important. Okay, and then you'll see if you can answer some of the other questions, but you can work on that later on today too. Which organisms are able to perform photosynthesis? So you're going to do your very best to answer these questions. Shouldn't take too long, so you can pause the video and move on. All right, so this was page 48, I believe. So you can read through this if you didn't have a textbook in front of you. Again, these words that are highlighted: photosynthesis, chlorophyll, and you already know the starting materials or the reactants for photosynthesis are carbon dioxide and water. Okay. The chlorophyll is a light-absorbing pigment that traps the energy that's in the sunlight. All right, this is also still page 48. So this is talking about the process of photosynthesis. So it takes place when carbon dioxide and water enter that plant's chloroplasts. So place, think about it that way, chloroplast. And chlorophyll captures the energy from the sunlight. Make sure you can tell the difference between those two words. All right. Of course, the products after we perform photosynthesis are oxygen and glucose. Okay, some more information. Plants do not immediately use all of the glucose they make. Some of the glucose molecules are linked together to build large carbohydrates like starches. And then the plants can store that starch and break it down later if they need to. Or, of course, when consumers eat the plants, they also will have the starch that they can break down. The starch or the glucose is going to be a place where the plant is storing energy. Okay. So you saw this slide last class. Just a reminder, we have chloroplasts inside a leaf. And those chloroplasts, that's the place where the photosynthesis happens. Okay, so chloroplasts are found in all the leaves of green plants and algae. I should say that differently. Chloroplasts are found in the leaves of all green plants and algae. They are the food producers. That's where the glucose or sugar is being produced. The chlorophyll is the pigment in the chloroplasts that gathers or traps that sunlight, the radiant energy that the plant is going to use to perform photosynthesis. Okay, so the chloroplast is the place where the magic happens. And if you're in the classroom, you're going to head to a microscope and you're going to look at Elodea cells. And so you're going to try to look for the chloroplasts in each cell. And just know that that chlorophyll is found inside the chloroplasts. That's actually what attracts and traps that light energy. And it's the chlorophyll that makes everything green. Okay, so we have another short video that you can watch now, or you can fast forward through this if you'd like to. Class periods 2 and 5 and 8, I believe, all had time to watch this video in class. So if you've already seen it, of course, just pause and then skip over that video and look at the rest of the slides afterwards.
How photosynthesis works. Light. It's an ingredient in what may be the most important recipe on the planet. Water and carbon dioxide are other key ingredients. The recipe is for photosynthesis. That's the process plants use to make the food they need to live and grow. The word photosynthesis means putting together with light. That phrase describes what occurs in plants. The food-making cells in plants use light energy to combine water and carbon dioxide. The light energy may come from the sun. It can also be from an artificial source, such as a light bulb. In either case, the result of the process is sugar. Plants use this sugar plus nutrients from soil to make proteins, vitamins, and other substances necessary for life. This is it in a nutshell. Without light energy, there would be no sugar. Without sugar, there would be no plant life. And without plant life, there would be no animals or people. Pause point. You may have heard someone say, the sun is the source of all life on Earth. Do you think this is a true statement? Why or why not? The food chain. Plants depend on light. People and all other animals, even carnivores, depend on plants. Because plants are the first link in the food chain. A food chain shows how living things are connected by food. Of the many food chains, the one here shows how foxes and plants are linked. Reaching for the light. Light is so important to plants that they seem to reach toward it. But how does the plant know which way to grow? It may not have eyes to see the light, but a plant does have hormones. These are substances made by plants and animals. They regulate growth and development. Auxins are hormones that affect the growth of plant cells. Auxins make cells on the shady side of a plant grow faster than cells on the sunny side do. That way, a plant stem may bend toward light to let as much light as possible reach more food-making cells. This phenomenon is known as phototropism. How photosynthesis works. Cells in the leaves of green plants contain tiny structures called chloroplasts. Inside each chloroplast is usually a green pigment or color called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll and other pigments trap light energy. Plants need that energy to carry out photosynthesis. Water, H2O, enters the leaves of the plant through tiny tubes. The trapped energy makes the water split into hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Leaves collect carbon dioxide from the air. Hydrogen atoms combine with the carbon dioxide to make glucose. Glucose is a type of sugar. While the plant is making sugar, it's also releasing oxygen. That's the gas that it lets go into the air. The underside of a leaf contains tiny holes called stomata. Carbon dioxide enters a leaf through the stomata, and oxygen leaves the leaf through the stomata. So, now you know how plants use light, water, and carbon dioxide to make the food they need to live and grow, and why plants make it possible for all life on Earth to survive.
All right, so if you're in the classroom, you can go check out a microscope and look at the allodia and see if you can find the chloroplasts in the allodia. And then please answer all of these questions that are at the back of your packet. On the very back side, there's a crossword puzzle that you can start working on if you'd like to. But just spend a couple of minutes to try to answer all of these questions, see how you do. Okay, and whoops, I need to back up. You can check your answers on the link in Schoology that'll be available partway through the lesson or sometime after the lesson today. All right, so if you'd like, you can spend a couple minutes looking for the 7 flies among all of these spiders. And then again, why is photosynthesis an essential process for animals? Well, we animals need photosynthesis to happen. We need the producers to give us oxygen and glucose. So both of those are very important for us. Oxygen to breathe and glucose for energy. Okay, so there is more to the story. So once we understand photosynthesis means that we have carbon dioxide and water going into the plant, and the plant is giving us oxygen and glucose back, we need to understand how do we use the glucose and the oxygen, especially for consumers like us, because we can't do photosynthesis. We can't create our own energy. And so plants and animals both use that glucose and oxygen with a process called cellular respiration. Okay, so that's basically the backwards process of photosynthesis. So let's take a look. All right, so cellular respiration is the process by which cells in plants and animals break down sugar and turn it into energy. Okay. So here's our 2 equations. We have one equation, one chemical equation for photosynthesis process. 6 carbon dioxides plus 6 waters and energy produces 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules. If you notice, cellular respiration has 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen molecules that produce 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 water molecules and some energy. Do you see anything special about those two chemical equations? Hopefully you are seeing that they are exact opposites. Okay, so we have exact opposites. Right, we're going to watch a video.
Wouldn't it be nice if the exhaust of your car could be used as fuel for your motorcycle? And the exhaust of your motorcycle could be used for fuel for your car. You would have a nice cycle in which both the car and the motorcycle benefited. Welcome to Moo Moo Math and Science and the relationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Photosynthesis and cellular respiration have a similar relationship. The waste product of photosynthesis is used in cellular respiration, and the waste product of cellular respiration is used for fuel in photosynthesis. In order to stay alive, we need to eat. However, have you ever thought, do plants need food? Yes, but how do plants get food by just standing around all day? Plants get their energy using a process called photosynthesis. In order for photosynthesis to take place, a plant needs 3 items. Water, like you see in this rainstorm, carbon dioxide found in the atmosphere. In fact, we breathe out carbon dioxide, and it's also released into the atmosphere when we burn organic objects. And then last, sunlight. So here's how it works. Plants have small openings called stomata on their surfaces. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere enter these tiny openings and travel to the chloroplasts. Photosynthesis occur at these chloroplasts, which are small organelles that plants have. The plants take the carbon dioxide plus water and energy from the sun, and in a chemical reaction create sugar in the form of glucose and then some oxygen that it releases into the atmosphere. Sugar created in the chemical reaction called photosynthesis is used by the plant to create energy. You could define photosynthesis as the process by which plants and other items make food. It is a chemical process that uses sunlight to turn carbon dioxide and water into sugars that the cell can use as energy. Now, why is cellular respiration important? It's important because living organisms, including plants, generate energy for their daily activities using cellular respiration. Cellular respiration takes place at the mitochondria. Think of the mitochondria as the power plant for cells, similar to how cells use power plants for their energy. So here's how it works in basic terms. At the mitochondria, the sugar combines with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP. So in summary, photosynthesis takes carbon dioxide and water plus sunlight to create oxygen and sugar, which is exactly what cellular respiration needs. Cellular respiration takes the sugar and oxygen to create carbon dioxide and water plus ATP, which helps with photosynthesis. And this cycle repeats over and over again. If you'd like to know more about photosynthesis,
All right, so I'm a little bit nervous that maybe that video did not actually get recorded, and so I will check again later. But if that video did not get recorded, I will include a link in Schoology so that you can watch that video. The video we just watched talked about photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Okay, so things to know. If we have the chloroplast and we are giving the chloroplast carbon dioxide and water and light energy, it will produce for us glucose and oxygen. This happens in the chloroplast. That's the place where it all happens. Okay, so that's how the plants create energy and create glucose, food, in the process called photosynthesis. So if we swing down here and we think about how can we use the glucose and the oxygen, well, The place where that happens is the mitochondrion, or many mitochondrion together are called mitochondria. So the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That's where you're going to take oxygen and glucose, and you're going to put them in the mitochondria, where the mitochondria is going to release carbon dioxide and water as byproducts, and a little bit of energy as well, in the form of ATP, but it's okay if you don't know ATP. All right, so we have another video that I'm going to include right now.
So plants can make their own food, which is a pretty big deal. But the flip side to photosynthesis is cellular respiration, the grand old process of breaking things down, aka eating the food. Both animals and plants do it, and thank goodness we all do, because it's one way we keep the system in balance. While only plants are involved in photosynthesis, both plants and animals perform cellular respiration. And unlike photosynthesis, it doesn't require sunlight. On one side, photosynthesis takes in energy from the sun and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. It builds up and stores food and releases oxygen. On the other side, cellular respiration uses up that food and oxygen and releases energy into the cell and eventually the environment, and you may have guessed it, produces carbon dioxide in the process. Yin, yang. So give yourself and your nearest plant friend a pat on the back. We're all working together to keep the earth in balance.
Okay, and so the only thing that's not super perfect about that video is it did not show you right here. It didn't show the water. So you really do need water and carbon dioxide to go in for the process of photosynthesis, because otherwise you don't have any hydrogens to be involved in making that big glucose molecule. So I feel like that's a little bit misleading with this video, but also that was a pretty quick video that was somewhat helpful. So, all right, so you're going to look at the next couple of slides and you're going to try to decide whether we're talking about photosynthesis or cellular respiration. Remember, the word reactants means the things that are going in and they will react together. Products are the things that are coming out. All right, so, and in classroom, we're probably going to have pieces of paper that say photosynthesis on one side and cellular respiration on the other to show answers. All right, so the products of this process are oxygen and glucose. So which one produces oxygen and glucose? Is it photosynthesis or is it cellular respiration? It's photosynthesis, of course. All right, this process happens in the chloroplasts of cells. What's going to happen in chloroplast? Well, that's the place where we take sunlight energy and turn it into oxygen and glucose. So it is photosynthesis again. All right, this process releases energy. Which one is going to release energy? That's cellular respiration. And then we know that this process needs light energy to happen. Remember, photosynthesis, photo is for light, synthesis is to make things. So we can only have photosynthesis happen when there is light during the day or during a time that you have an artificial light source. So that'll be photosynthesis. We've got that word light, and photo means light. This process happens in the mitochondria of the cells. The mitochondria, that's our powerhouse of the cell. And so we know cellular respiration is going to happen in the mitochondria so that it will release our carbon dioxide and our water and a little bit of energy. All right, this process changes light energy into chemical energy. What's the one that changes light energy? Photo is light, so it's going to be photosynthesis. And this process is done by all living organisms, both producers and consumers. And of course, decomposers are also consumers, right? So all living organisms do cellular respiration. The reactants of this process are glucose and oxygen. So that means we're putting in glucose and oxygen. So which is it? Think about, what does a plant need? Plant needs water and carbon dioxide. So you know it's not photosynthesis, you know it's the other one, cellular respiration. And the purpose of this process is to store up energy, not release energy. Photosynthesis is what we do so that we can store energy. The reactants, so the raw ingredients of this process, the raw ingredients are water and carbon dioxide. Well, that's what we give to the plant when we ask the plant to produce oxygen and glucose. The reactants are water and carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. All right. So this we probably did not do in class. It's part of a gizmos, but if you notice, oxygen is not being produced, right? That's a really low number. And also, what do I not have? I don't have light. So clearly, if I don't have light and I'm not producing a lot of oxygen, it means that the thing that's not happening is photosynthesis. We are not doing photosynthesis here. All right, we can run and jump and play because we are able to use energy because we have cells that can perform cellular respiration. Right, any organism that does this process must have chlorophyll. That would be the process of photosynthesis. So those are our producers. Only producers do photosynthesis. But producers and consumers do cellular respiration. Just keep that in mind. All right, this process can occur any time of the day, whether we have sunlight or not. So which one doesn't need light? Cellular respiration. This process can occur in these organisms that were in our ecosystems. These are green organisms that have chlorophyll and chloroplasts. So actually, technically, both of these can happen, right? We can have photosynthesis if we have light energy, but the plant also needs to do cellular respiration so that it can use the energy that it has produced through photosynthesis. So plants are going to do both. All right, and so there is likely going to be a Kahoot linked into your Schoology. Double check that. And I believe we are going to... Yep, we're going to finish our notes here and double check and see if you have an exit ticket. Periods 2, 5, and 8 probably will have a second exit ticket for Fueling Life, but periods 3 and 7, I'm not sure yet. So thank you so much.